My friends, last night the sky in southern Iran really lit up. These images are from last night. Residents of Kersh Island, Bandar Abbas, and Sirik woke up to loud booms. The regime's own press reported 14 explosions. It was the United States. For the first time since the ceasefire, America struck Iranian territory again, and Iran responded that same night, firing at American bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. You're hearing it right, folks. The United States and Iran exchanging fire again on the same night, just 3 weeks after signing an agreement. And when the sun came up, Trump buried the agreement for good. He said 3 words: "For me, it's over." But he didn't stop at those 3 words. He called the Iranian regime something that a real American president doesn't usually say like that. I'll show you the exact phrase in a moment. And there's also Netanyahu, who on the same night confirmed an Iranian threat that we had already shown here on the channel and that the mainstream media keeps ignoring. It's not the atomic bomb, it's another weapon. And now, it came from the mouth of the Israeli Prime Minister himself. Stay with me because in this video, I'm going to show you the full story of that night. Who broke the agreement according to each side, and my take on why Iran is doing this now. And I'll tell you right away, my answer isn't in the Middle East. It has to do with a date in November in the United States. Whoever stays until the end will understand the game behind the game. And before we start, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Because on a day like today, this channel is the one that puts the pieces together for you. Live from Israel, right where everything is happening. Let's start tonight's movie or tonight's soap opera. But first, I want to give you a pair of glasses, all right? To follow this story, the key concept tonight is controlled escalation. That's what's happening right now. Controlled escalation is when both sides trade blows, but each holds back to prevent a full-blown fight. One hits, the other responds a step higher. And both watch their opponent, right? They watch. Is the opponent going to take it up another notch or stop right there? It's a game of nerves on a staircase, and the danger lies in a detail. No one has agreed on where that staircase ends. Both sides believe they're in control until they reach a point where they lose control and things spiral. So keep this concept in mind, because the whole night was a fight over each step on that staircase. And while you watch the rest of the video, count the steps with me, okay guys? Now let's go. To understand what happened overnight, you need to know that yesterday was Iran's most aggressive day in the Strait of Hormuz since the war ended. The Revolutionary Guard fired missiles and drones at commercial ships at the exit of the strait. There were at least 5 shots fired at 3 vessels. Some say it was 5 vessels. And take a look at the flag of each ship that was hit because it tells the story. A gas carrier from Qatar, an oil tanker from Saudi Arabia, and a gas carrier from the United Arab Emirates, the 3 biggest partners of the United States in the Gulf. And the detail that turns this into a real provocation: the ships were sailing on the alternative route, right along the coast of Oman, exactly the route that ships started using to avoid the Iranian side of the strait. Exactly the route where the Americans increased military flights to protect the route and ensure ships can pass safely. Iran didn't target those who disrespected its rules, it targeted those who tried to escape Iran's rules. And they didn't even try to hide it. The Revolutionary Guard got on Channel 16, for those who don't know. That's the emergency radio frequency at sea, the one that every ship on the planet is required to monitor. They told the captain to keep it on and informed him that it was them who had hit his ship, and they ordered all vessels in the region to only sail on routes approved by Tehran. Now imagine the situation of that captain. On the other hand, on the same Channel 16, he hears the Oman side saying they can pass freely. And on the same channel, another voice saying they can't pass. Imagine the situation of that ship's captain. Qatar, which spent months mediating between the Americans and the regime, didn't accept what happened. They declared that Iran is fully responsible for the strike and that they will be held accountable for it legally. Not militarily, he said, legally. And last night, the first American response came. The United States Treasury revoked the license that allowed Iran to sell oil. The money tap has been shut off once again, right? But the Iranians have been used to this for decades. But this time, the sanction didn't come by itself. And then, in the early hours, just after midnight, the first reports of explosions in southern Iran came in. And the American Military Command for the Middle East officially took over. A series of operations against Iran began. At 5 in the morning, Israel time, the Americans announced that the first round was over. Just pay attention to what they said, guys. Round completed, first round. It's not operation over, it's round. The first word they chose warns that there could be another one. And look at the official justification, because that's the legal framework for the whole night. The statement says that the goal is to impose heavy costs on Iran for targeting and hitting commercial ships manned by civilians, innocent people on an international route. Innocent civilians, international route. Every one of these words, my friend, was carefully chosen to make it clear who the aggressor is in this story. And you're asking what was hit in Iran? According to an American official who spoke to Reuters, the entire list is military. Air defense systems, coastal surveillance radars, anti-ship missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and drone launch bases. Now, notice the pattern in this list. Everything that was hit is exactly the tool that Iran uses to hunt ships in the Strait. This time, the Americans didn't target the regime itself. They didn't target the ayatollahs, the palaces, or the symbols. They targeted the hand that holds the pirate's harpoon. Keep this choice of targets in mind because it will be important in my analysis later on. Leaving now means you'll miss the video's point. And what about Iran? Iran responded twice as hard on the same night. The Revolutionary Guard officially confirmed that it fired at American military installations in Bahrain and the Gulf. Iran didn't just target the United States. They hit the United States inside the homes of two Arab neighbors: Bahrain, which hosts the US Fifth Fleet, and Kuwait, which has hosted thousands of American soldiers since the 1990s. According to the Americans, they hit 80 targets, and according to the Iranians, they hit 85. They always have a higher number than the Americans, right? But nothing has been proven from this side either, okay? On this side, nothing has been proven that they actually hit those targets. And in the morning, the Iranian military command took things up a notch, promising a crushing response to the United States. Note this promise. It's a key milestone we'll watch in the coming hours. I don't even want to say in the next few days, in the next few hours. And the Iranian army itself issued the statement. It said the following: Iranian drones hit the American base at Sheikh Issa in Bahrain since the early hours of the morning, and the statement ends as an open threat. All American bases in the region will be legitimate targets for the Iranian army's drones. All bases, legitimate targets for Iran, painting every American installation on the Gulf map in red. Kuwait confirmed the size of the barrage it received, intercepting 2 ballistic missiles and 13 drones fired from Iran without damage or injuries. And in Bahrain, sirens sounded throughout the entire country. And it didn't stop during the early morning, folks. In the middle of this morning just now, this happened. Sources from the Iranian opposition reported a second round of US strikes. Now, in the Bushehr region, an aerospace facility of the Revolutionary Guard, a guard base, and a target right next to the Bushehr air base. In other words, while the world was still having breakfast, the United States struck again, and the regime confirmed the first casualty. On the regime's side, a terrorist from Basij, that internal repression force, was hit by shrapnel during the drone attacks. And he won't be coming home anymore. He's gone for good, so that's the score as of now, folks. 1:18 in the morning, 1:18 in the afternoon here in Israel. All right, look at this. So far, ships hit yesterday. Some say 3 ships, others say 5 ships. An oil sanction was reinstated overnight. That is one more oil sanction. The sanction that had been suspended is back. 14 explosions in southern Iran, according to reports from Iranian media. According to the Americans, there were 80 targets, Iranian drones and missiles in Bahrain and Kuwait, second American round in Bukhar, now in the morning, and a promise of an even more overwhelming response, still standing, coming from Iran. 3 weeks after the agreement, and the waters of the Gulf are boiling again. And now comes the question that decides all of this, right? Who broke the agreement? You must be wondering who broke the agreement. I'll provide both versions since this channel shows the full picture, not just one side, so you can decide for yourself. We know which side broke it, but that's up to you. Also, here's the Iranian version. First, the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement saying it holds the United States responsible for violating the Memorandum of Understanding, and that it will take all measures it deems necessary to protect its national security interests. And it said that the United States has been repeatedly violating the agreement for 20 days directly or indirectly, and as for the indirect part. The statement blames Israel's actions in Lebanon, but the statement doesn't say Israel. It says Zionist entity, which is how the regime's propaganda refers to our country. Here, without acknowledging that it exists, so they say Zionist entity and the whole regime is reading the same text. The foreign ministry, the parliament, the military command, everyone on the same page. It's the Americans and Israelis' fault. In Tehran's version, Iran is the victim, as always, right? The others violated first, and the ships are just payback. And this version has a very clear goal. If it's the other's fault, any response becomes self-defense. And now, the American version from the other side. And here, a major figure entered the scene, giving the American response a stamp of approval worth its weight in gold, something that hadn't happened until now. Guys, NATO. The Secretary General of NATO stated today in no uncertain terms that the American attacks were absolutely necessary and explained the reasoning. Look at what he said. Guys, pay close attention. When you have a ceasefire, and Iran is basically violating that ceasefire, I think it's absolutely crucial that the United States responds forcefully. Smash the like button. Guys, I can see you forgot to do that on this video, so hit the like button and subscribe to the channel because I know you're not subscribed yet. And when the subject of Iran came up in his meeting with Trump today, this guy from NATO with Trump, his answer was just 3 words. I'm with you. Look at that, guys. The biggest military alliance on the planet, with 32 countries in it, publicly backing the American operation, that changes the diplomatic weight, at least for tonight. It wasn't a solo adventure by Trump. It was a response. NATO is supporting behind the scenes, but will it get involved in the war? I keep saying that I don't think so. Okay, I don't think so. Maybe at that summit they'll decide something different, but for now, I don't think so. And there was another message for Iran, from where Iran least expected it, from the Arab world itself. The diplomatic advisor to the presidency of the United Arab Emirates stated that the Iranian attacks against the ships from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates and the repeated aggressions against Bahrain and Kuwait show that Tehran remains unable to commit to de-escalation, and he said a phrase that sums up the exhaustion of the entire Gulf. The Arab Gulf countries cannot continue to be the target of Iran's hesitation between the logic of escalation and the path of rationality. And Kuwait made a slightly tougher statement. It condemned in the strongest terms the repeated and heinous Iranian aggressions. And it warned that it reserves the right to take all necessary measures to protect its sovereignty. For now, the Arab countries are only making statements, right? Will any country actually come and attack the United Arab Emirates? They promised to respond, folks, to respond today. They even gave a date. Okay, so hang in there until the end. You'll understand this soon. And now connect this with what we've already talked about here. Who was going to fund the Iran Reconstruction Fund, that fund that was already set up, since they were supposed to receive hundreds of billions as planned in the agreement? The Gulf countries, folks, the Gulf countries, the same countries that Iran is targeting now, Iran is literally shooting at the hand that was going to sign the check. So, keep this image in mind because it doesn't have a rational explanation except for one. And that's exactly where my interpretation comes in. And it's not the first time we've talked about this. All right, there really isn't any rational explanation, folks. But before that, the most powerful moment of the morning was Trump at the UN and NATO summit there in Ankara, and he's still there. He was asked about the deal with Iran after last night, and his answer buried 2 months of diplomacy in a single sentence. Quote, for me, I think it's over, end quote. And later, he went even further and stated bluntly, the truce is over from his point of view, from Trump's point of view. The Memorandum of Understanding signed 3 weeks ago and valid until August 16th is over. So, what now? That timer we were following here on the channel was declared over by the American president himself before the deadline and without ceremony. For me, that agreement is still in effect, okay? But that's what Trump stated. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that countdown is still running. And he made a point of emphasizing the scale of the force used in the early morning. Quote, we attacked tonight with a force 20 times greater than last time. End quote. Do you remember the American response last month, which was a calibrated surgical response, as Trump himself is saying now? This time the intensity jumped 20 notches all at once. And then came the words that the American president doesn't usually say in public about another government. He may have said something close to this before, but not like this. Just look at his vocabulary about the Iranian regime. All of this was said today, folks, in front of the cameras. Quote, I don't want to deal with them anymore. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They are scum. They are sick people. End quote. He continued. He continues, they are liars. We make a deal. Everyone agrees. No atomic weapons. We close the deal. Then they go out, talk to the press, and say we didn't even discuss it. There's something wrong with them. End quote. Trump's words. And about the Iranian people themselves, Trump said, almost no media mentions this number except this channel. And this channel says it's actually even higher, though he's already raised it. Trump has already increased this number because before it was less than that, now it's already going up. Look at that. According to him, the regime has already taken the lives of 54,000 protesters. And he explained it in his own way, why the people haven't overthrown the Ayatollahs yet. Quote, people ask, how come the people don't take power? They can't take power because the regime takes them out, they don't have weapons, and the other side has machine guns. And the press doesn't report this, end quote. Guys, the press doesn't report this, and Brazilian influencers don't report this either. Who are there now making propaganda for the Iranian regime, right? Hopefully this big attack starts now in Tehran. Let this be a message to those influencers who went to see up close what this regime is like. Trump mentions 54,000, as I said before. There are numbers that say 85. At some point, he'll reach the number they're talking about over there, Because before he talked about 34, then he went up to 40, now he's talking about 54,000. These numbers are much higher, according to the Iranian opposition, from inside Iran. Guys, I'm not talking about Iran International. These are reports coming from inside Iran that reach over 80,000. That's what they're saying over there. But he called them scum, liars, sick people. This isn't even diplomatic language, it's the language of a complete break. And then came the most personal moment of the morning. They asked about his intentions, about Iran's intentions to reach Trump, in other words, to target Trump. And his answer was the following, quote, "I'm on all their lists. So far, I think I've been a bit lucky, but maybe the luck won't last much longer," end quote. Look at that, guys. The President of the United States admitting in public that the Iranian regime is after his head. Now, he admits, right, that it wasn't just twice, it was much more than that. At least he's admitting that publicly, and that his luck, as he himself says, could run out at any moment. And he wraps up this sequence with a detail that ties Washington and Jerusalem together with a single thread. Trump said that Iranians are cancer, and that cancer should be cut out early. Remember this word, cancer. Because soon you'll hear Netanyahu in another interview on the same day using exactly the same image. In other words, my friends, when President Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, choose the same word on the same day, that's not a coincidence, it's a shared diagnosis. And just notice the contrast that all of this creates. A week ago, Trump was promising an imminent deal. Do you remember that? Imminent for the 38th time. And today he says he won't talk to Iran and will leave the negotiators talking to themselves if they want. Look at that, guys. What do you think about it? I want your opinion here in the comments. The video isn't over yet. There's still a lot of very important stuff for you to hear in this video. So, from an imminent deal to it's over, all in one night, in just a few hours. And let me show you here the magnitude of what dies along with this agreement, okay? We've been following each close on the channel for a while. The reconstruction fund of hundreds of billions of dollars that the Gulf countries were going to finance dies, and the unfreezing of Iranian assets that were blocked abroad also dies. The oil license dies, which was already revoked yesterday. In other words, they can no longer sell oil only to China, right, guys? And the final negotiation that was planned dies. The one from Article 13, which Chancellor Agashe had been touting as a shield in the middle of the night. The regime traded all of that for 5 ships with holes in them in a round of missiles. That equation, my friends, doesn't add up in the regime's math, which in theory wants peace. That's what they say, right? It only adds up in the regime's math if they actually want something else. So, if you think this video has already earned your like so far, go ahead and leave it, okay? Because now comes the part I promised at the beginning. My take on why Iran is doing this. And I believe that's also the take of some of the followers here on the channel. And I've already talked about this theory here a few times on the channel, and I'm going to repeat it once again, because with each passing day, it explains the facts even better. At this moment, the one most interested in reigniting this conflict in the Middle East is Iran itself. It sounds totally crazy to say this, but it's true, guys. The regime took a beating in the war, lost the supreme leader, lost the generals, a lot of them, and now lost the oil money again. What interest would he have in continuing this fight, knowing that this very person who just made this statement will probably be eliminated too? And the answer lies in a date. November 2026, the midterm election in the United States. Now, I'm going to explain exactly what this is, so you can leave here once and for all knowing that this matters, because a lot of people write in the comments, but what does this have to do with anything? I'll explain, guys, because it's the key to everything. In the middle of the American president's term, that is about 2 years in, the whole country votes again to elect a new Congress. Not the president stays there. Congress, the House, and a good part of the Senate, and it's Congress that approves or blocks everything the president wants to do. In other words, if Trump's party loses this November election, Trump becomes a president with his hands tied. He still sits in the president's chair, but Congress can block everything. And how does an American president historically lose the midterm election? This election that's coming up, that's when the economy tightens, when people run out of money, and when the country gets involved in a conflict that doesn't end. And now, put the pieces together with me. If Iran manages to drag the United States back into open conflict in the Middle East, right on top of the election. In other words, from now on, the price of oil shoots up again. Gas prices go up at the pump in the United States and all over the world. But in the United States, guys, you have no idea. Every cent that goes up over there, Americans go crazy, they go crazy. Brazilians tolerate it, but Israelis tolerate it even more. Here you can raise it by 5 shekels. People just stay calm, nobody goes out to protest, but over there, just a few cents and everything can catch fire and voters will punish Trump at the polls. Iran doesn't need to defeat the United States on the battlefield. It doesn't need to, guys. It just needs to push Trump into a conflict, an unpopular conflict. On the eve of the vote for Tehran, a weakened Trump in Congress is worth more than any missile because that's a strong Trump. The way he is now, he puts pressure on the regime for another 2 years, and don't come telling me that he doesn't put pressure. Guys, he's already done a lot, okay? I have a lot of criticism of Trump, especially about his handling of this war. But these are the facts I have. I'm sure he and Netanyahu know much more than I do. But we have criticism here on the channel too, but we can't ignore what he's already done. He's already done a lot, and the planes are still there, guys. Do you want to see the planes? They're still there. It's not over, guys. Calm down, there's something important here. Look, the planes are coming less frequently, okay? They've decreased because they've already done a lot this morning. So the pilots probably had to go rest to start another round in a little while. But let's keep going, keep going. Look, because Trump is strong, he can put a little more pressure on the regime, like these planes you're seeing now. If Trump is defeated in November, he becomes a lame duck and the regime keeps breathing freely. So, look at the early morning again through this lens, okay? That's how you have to look at it. Iran hits ships from Arab countries. Knowing that the United States will have to respond, the United States responds. Iran strikes back in Bahrain and Kuwait, escalating things a bit more, and promises a crushing response. Each round of this will push Trump to take a stronger step, deeper into the swamp, and every step in the swamp costs votes. Back in November, I already said that's the problem with the West, guys. That's the problem with the West. They only think about their own seat, their own career. That's it, unfortunately. That's why this regime is still around, okay? It's not desperation from the regime, but calculation. They're willing to take a hit now to bring down Trump later. He knows that Trump is the problem and that Trump is weak over there, so they faked it too. Trump pretended to have a fight with Netanyahu to see if he could bring a few more people to his side over there in the United States, but it seems like that's not working very well over there because his national support numbers among Americans still aren't recovering the way they should, unfortunately. He tried to pick a fight with Netanyahu. He's still trying to stage what I think is a really serious fight between Netanyahu and Trump, to try to pull those people who were against him over to his side. And now come back with me to that detail I asked you to remember. As for the Americans' target selection, the United States struck radar systems, air defenses, and launchers, the tools of piracy. They didn't hit the regime, they didn't hit symbols, they didn't start a new campaign, and I'm against that. I think that for every ship, a major symbol or senior member of the regime should be eliminated, because the people on the ship, folks, are innocent crew members. These people could lose their lives. So if you fire at the ship, you should go to the other side and take some of those guys out of the picture. And who knows, maybe miss the target there and hit some of those guys who are wandering around Iran, right? But leave it there, let's go. And along with the missiles, right? Along with the missiles came the oil sanction too. One hurts the arsenal, the other hurts the pocket. And neither of them creates on American television the image of a new conflict starting. Remember that? So, they're trying to balance this here so it doesn't look like a big conflict. To me, this shows someone in the US understood Iran's strategy. The response was designed to punish without escalation and demand accountability without giving the regime the November conflict it seeks. The trillion-dollar question, not even billion-dollar, is how long can this be kept calibrated? Because Iran has promised a crushing response later today, and if that crushing response really comes, the calibration will be over. During this heated night, Netanyahu gave an interview to American TV that delivered the confirmation I mentioned earlier. At the beginning, they asked him about the threats that Iran still poses, and he answered with a phrase that changes the threat landscape. For those asking for a source, when I mentioned this on the channel, everyone replied, "That's just a theory. Where's your source?" I talked about this before the war and during the war. I think I've been saying this for over a year. I may not have the exact timing here, but I've been saying it for a long time, folks. And now there's the source. To the doubters, see what he said. Open quotes. They definitely have chemical weapons, I can guarantee you that. And that's another threat they pose, close quotes. Chemical weapons, definitely words from Netanyahu. Anyone following this channel has already heard this warning, and I even explained where some of this arsenal may have come from. From Libya, after the fall of Gaddafi, when the Libyan regime's stockpiles were looted and that material spread into the wrong hands in the region. Some of it, right? There was also an attempt by Hamas at the time to get this material, but they didn't succeed. According to intelligence, it ended up in the hands of the Iranians. The difference is that now it's not me saying this, it's the Prime Minister of Israel stating it clearly on American television. While the whole world is only discussing uranium, centrifuges, and the Strait of Hormuz, this here is a real threat. My friend, it doesn't depend on enrichment, it doesn't depend on Fordow, on anything, it doesn't depend on scientists, it's already ready. As for the nuclear program, Netanyahu described the war damage. dismantled infrastructure, centrifuges out of operation, factories hit. And 20 of the main scientists of the program were taken out of the picture, and he repeated the number twice in the interview, 20 of the main scientists. And here comes the echo I asked you to remember. Netanyahu used a medical analogy to explain why the operation was worth it, even without a definitive guarantee. The same analogy as Trump. He repeats, open quotes. It's like when you remove cancer from the body, it can come back, but one thing you know, if you didn't remove it, you could die, right? Netanyahu said that. Hey folks, it's like when you remove cancer from the body, it can come back, but one thing you know, if you didn't remove it, you could die. Close quotes. The word cancer on Trump's lips in the morning, the word cancer on Netanyahu's lips. In the same round of interviews, two governments, one word, and those who treat the disease like cancer don't sign a contract with it, they cut it out. Then comes the smart guy saying that Netanyahu copied Trump. Guys, these interviews are recorded. They're usually not live. You know that. They're not live. They're recorded. He could have done this in the middle of the night, okay? So, it's more likely that Trump copied Netanyahu. Let's go. And he also explained why, in his view, Trump got into the war. He said because a regime that shouts death to America with ballistic missiles that could one day reach the United States, armed with nuclear warheads, would put every American in danger. In his words, it was essential for the security of the United States, and he detailed the financial state of the regime. After the war, the Revolutionary Guard, which in practice controls Iran, lost much of its sources of revenue. For those who remember, right folks, these are the industries and businesses that the Guard controlled from within and from which it got the money to sustain the regime. Remember the factories that were destroyed during this war? Many factories, that's where a lot of money came from. And then he made a comparison that ties Iran to everything we've covered this week. He said that the dictators and their henchmen live like kings while the people live in misery. And he added, it's the same thing in Gaza, the same thing with Hezbollah. They take care of themselves and don't care about the people. Tehran, Gaza, and Beirut. Three addresses, the same business model, the boss in the palace, the people in the breadline. And the picture he painted of the regime from the inside is also that of a cracked building. He reminded us that Iran has about 90 million inhabitants and that at least 80 million of them hate the regime. That the population sees the Ayatollahs as theological bandits who took over the country and rule at gunpoint. And he mentioned the number of more than 40,000 Iranians affected by the regime during the crackdowns, people who were only praying for their own freedom. And he finished with a prediction and a promise. Look at what he said, quote, Iran is staggering. The Iranian people live in absolute misery, and the dictators and their henchmen live like kings. I don't think this will last. I think that in the end, the people will drive them out and we will have to give a little help. End quote, folks. This is probably the first time this year Netanyahu has spoken so much with the US press, and he's already done it several times. Now it's becoming more intense. That's an explanation of what's happening and what's next. You just need to understand the map. We're going to have to give a little help, so remember this phrase. Because on the same day that Trump says he doesn't want to deal with the regime anymore, Netanyahu says the people are going to overthrow the regime with a little help. Both statements, made on the same day, point to the same direction. No one in Washington or Jerusalem is betting a cent on the long-term survival of those Ayatollahs anymore. Now, you ask me if Trump is really going to cancel this deal? I'll tell you that, from Trump's perspective, he has two options. Either keep things as they are until the elections. Drag this out as much as he can, the more he can, the better for him. Leave the oil situation as it is. Or launch a massive operation now, bigger than the one that lasted 40 days. And try once and for all, to bring down the regime from within. That's Trump's only hope. It's the only logical option, actually. It's this. To bring down the regime once and for all, or keep dragging this out until after the elections, okay? That's what could happen now. So yes, we might be entering once again into a major conflict that will last through the end of July. June is over, and soon July will be over too. The whole month of August, and then it all ends in a month. That's what could happen. Remember that Trump said we could come back for another 2-week stretch to put an end to work once and for all, It's about getting these guys out of the way. Galiba, Faragas, Varid, all these guys who are now controlling, harming, and ordering to shoot. If he gets them out of the way, a new batch comes in. And we don't even know the names of these guys. We really don't know who the next batch will be that takes the place of these guys. But everyone has to be removed. The boss of STF, the one over there, I don't know what it's called there, the STF over there, I think that's it. So the boss of that one has to be removed. Those guys from there, all of them from there, okay? So let's recap the night here with me, but I'm not done yet, guys, because the picture is coming together. Iran hit ships, and the United States responded with missiles and sanctions. Iran retaliated against its Arab neighbors, and the whole Gulf turned against it, once again against it on paper. No weapons for now. NATO called the American response necessary. Is NATO about to join the war? Is this summit an agreement for their involvement? Trump declared the death of the agreement and called the regime scum, and Netanyahu revealed the chemical arsenal and prophesied the fall of the regime. All this happened between yesterday's sunset and today's lunch here in Israel. It's 1:41 p.m. here, and there are 4 milestones for you to watch now. The first one could happen in the next few hours. The United Arab Emirates issued a direct threat just a short while ago, also with a deadline. Iran will pay a heavy price tonight. The Emirates are speaking for the first time, stating this because, as we know, they have entered and actively participated in the war. Remember when it was reported they actively took part in the war? So now they have threatened that tonight they will pay a heavy price. If a Gulf Arab country fully joins this response, the conflict changes in nature. It shifts from the United States versus Iran to the entire Gulf against Tehran. That's a real slap in the face, isn't it? While the delegation from Saudi Arabia and Qatar is there offering their condolences to leader Ali Khamenei, they are attacking the Gulf countries. Isn't it impressive how these countries are too afraid to respond? And the second one, the Wall Street Journal reported that American ships went on high alert for a possible naval blockade of Iran on Trump's orders. Do you remember the blockade that was set up? It really could happen again, right? A naval blockade means closing the sea off to the regime again. Nothing gets in and nothing gets out. If this is confirmed, it's economic pressure once again. It's a step above this new sanction. The sanction actually came back. The blockade it was lifted, right? Now it could come back at any moment. The third is the overwhelming response promised by the Iranian command. If it comes, its scale will determine whether the US calibrated approach holds, and it's a sign that the region is preparing for the worst. The Secretary of War there, the American Defense Secretary, the American Secretary of War, Peter Hegseth canceled his visit. He was supposed to arrive in Israel today, but the visit was canceled. So the head of the Pentagon changed his schedule in the middle of the crisis. It's because the crisis dictates the schedule, folks. The fourth, the strait. Every ship that crosses those waters in the next 48 hours is a test. If Iran hits more, the cycle starts all over again. Let's look at the strait here. Look at the strait. For now, no ships are passing through here. Nothing is moving through here. Everything is stopped right now, of course, right? Which ship is going to take the risk? Which crew member? Which captain is going to accept that? Imagine being next to the commander, guys. The commander, the captain, the commander of that ship. On the same channel 16, they're hearing two different things. One from the Omani side saying, keep going. The same radio, guys, the same communication radio. It's like a single call with two voices in the same place. Just imagine this guy's situation on the ship, right? What is he going to do? One says, if you pass, I'll hit you. And the other says, you can go, you're cleared. It's a complicated situation. And here, it's worth remembering, because this affects your life too, even if you're in Brazil, Angola, Portugal, or any other country. Because through that strait, man, about a fifth of all the oil on the planet goes through there. And it's not just oil, it's not only oil, there's gas supplies, a lot of things go through there. So, when something happens in that strait, the price per barrel goes up all over the world. And when the price per barrel goes up, gasoline prices at the pump go up too. In New York, in Sao Paulo, over there at the port. This crisis starts in the Gulf, but the bill is going to hit our pockets. So keep an eye on August 16th too. Because for me, the 60-day deadline for me, the countdown is still on. For Trump, it's already over. Let's see which one will count. And there's a word in Hebrew that sums up what Trump said today about this agreement, nigmar. So who's learning Hebrew with me? Nigma means it's over, finished, it came to an end. It's the word you use when the water in your glass is gone, for example, when a movie ends, when a relationship ends. And for me, it's over, said the American president, according to him, right? Now, whether the agreement is over or what will start in place of this agreement, that's the question that will define the next few hours. And I'll be here following every move, every flight, every decision to tell you first. And better than the mainstream media, guys, because making a video to explain what happened isn't enough. You need to understand everything. If you leave here having learned everything, I'm happy. If not, this video wasn't worth it, right? If this video helped you understand the most tense night of the last 3 months, like subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with your family and colleagues. After all, there are good Brazilians out there thinking that all of this started this morning and that it was the United States who responded and attacked first. Qatar is very small, Davi, and it's very close to Iran. If they send heavy stuff, it'll be wiped out. I get you, Tati Natana. Qatar is tiny. It's really tiny. It's micro. But all these countries will probably get into a war the moment they feel the Iranian regime has a chance of falling. As long as they don't feel that this regime is about to fall and that the United States is really willing to get involved and go all the way, these countries will stay out. For now, Qatar is not being targeted. For now, the countries in the crosshairs are Kuwait and Bahrain. Remember that? Only Kuwait and Bahrain. Guys, just know. There hasn't been an attack against the United Arab Emirates yet. There hasn't been an attack against Qatar, not yet. For now, no. Now, if the Emirates attack tonight, as promised, we'll probably see attacks from Iran against the Emirates, either against a ship or against a port, something like that in the region as well. And what is the problem with the war right now in the Middle East? People there, especially in the Gulf, what is the big problem? And maybe that's one of the problems and fears of these countries. Just imagine, people, just look at Rodrigo Campos over there in Abu Dhabi. Can you imagine, Rodrigo? They hit the power plant in Abu Dhabi, and you all lose power right now during this period over there. In August, 50 degrees feels like 55. Can you imagine that, people? Can anyone live in that kind of temperature? Us, here on this other side of the world, we can't, people, we can't. So that's the biggest fear in this region, in my opinion, because they're extremely vulnerable. They're extremely vulnerable. And it's really dangerous for them, honestly, people. Millions of people live in these places. Qatar without power, I don't know how these people would survive with the heat they have there. They can't. So, really, it's a very delicate situation. We need to think about all the people who live in these countries. You have to remember that Gulf countries are not just Arabs. They're not people. They're not. They're not. They aren't. In Qatar, in the United Arab Emirates, most of the population is not Arab. They're people who came from the West to work. It's the same thing in Qatar. It's the same thing in Bahrain. It's not like Saudi Arabia, but the three countries I mentioned are. Most of their populations are from outside, making the situation very dangerous and delicate. Sooner or later, this war is going to break out again because they also demand the complete withdrawal of Israel from Lebanon. And it's already been agreed between Israel and Lebanon that this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. Thank you to everyone who left your super chat here. You are the sponsors of the channel. And to everyone who sends money through Pix to the channel as well. Guys, this helps a lot. I'm not sponsored by Iran, like a lot of people who travel to Iran for free, right? Everything paid for by those guys. I don't have that sponsorship, guys. Not from Iran, not from the United States, not from Israel, from nobody. You are the real sponsors. And it's because of you that this channel exists. And my role here, sometimes for some people it's really annoying because I talk a lot. But I have to talk a lot. Because this is very complex. You can't sum up a 2,000-year-old story in a 7 to 10-minute video. Do you agree? It's impossible. It just turns into a brief news report. People cover one story here, another there. I'm not criticizing them. They're doing what they can. But if you share a message, with one message, you can't see the whole picture or fully understand what's happening, which leads to wrong conclusions. That's why I share everything here so you understand what happened. Step by step, piece by piece, so you can leave here truly knowing everything that happens in the Middle East. And for those who leave at the beginning of the video, I feel sorry for them, because their lack of patience leaves them uninformed. Aguinaldo. Aguinaldo, welcome, and João Correia de Leite, thank you for the super chat. Nivalda, this is the live stream for now. If anything major happens in the Middle East, I'll return right away. Hugs to all the friends of Israel. See you at the next live stream.